Greetings, brothers and sisters, and today I consider whether the purity of the inner party is in fact a facade. Do inner party members engage in sex crime, or is that the province of proles and the occasional brave outer party couple? From my understanding of the law, I believe there is an answer, though as with many things in the 1984 universe, we are dealing in likelihoods rather than solid fact. Welcome to 1984 Law, comrades, and let's get into these questions. Firstly, for those who don't know, any sex act outside of the permitted joyless, almost mechanical sex within marriage is outlawed in the joyous territory of Oceania. Sex has one function, and that is to beget the next generation of loyal party members. Extramarital intercourse of any kind, and even any more exotic intimate acts within marriage, are all deemed sex crimes. As Winston notes, however, the party is somewhat tolerant to differing degrees when it comes to certain sex crimes. He notes that, though consorting with a prole lady of the night was dangerous, if caught, it would mean no worse than about 5 years in a forced labour camp. From his tone it would seem that such a thing was not uncommon, though how in his society he could confirm this is unknown. I don't think he and Syme or the bumbling Parsons ever openly discuss it over a gin at lunch hour or anything like that. Winston contrasts purchasing the services of a prole woman with outer party trysts. If the former was a relatively tame offence in the generally draconian world of Oceania, then the latter was downright dangerous. Winston describes sex crimes between party members as a serious offence, which later turns out to be true. Such affairs between party members were common charges levelled against traitors during the purges, while furtively sleeping with prole women merely for a release was somewhat tolerated by the party. Sleeping with comrades was beyond the pale, as it had the potential to create strong bonds and loyalties outside of party control. As Julia later adds too, the act of intercourse also uses up energy. Afterwards, both lovers feel good and satisfied, and don't give much thought to the party, big brother, or any of the associated things, like marching and rallies and such. So we know from Winston that he at least has committed at least 2, if not almost certainly multiple, sex crimes with prole women willing to sell themselves. Assuming Winston is typical, which is a solid assumption since he is after all Orwell's everyman protagonist, we can surmise that this type of sex crime must be relatively common. Julia, at their first meeting in the Golden Country, furthermore quite earnestly admits she's committed dozens of sex crimes with outer party members. We know for a fact it's at least 2. Her first lover, a comrade aged 60, who committed self-deletion to avoid the thought police, and Winston himself. From her language, however, it's safe to assume she's had at least 1, if not multiple different lovers, all outer party members. Her exact language is she's done this dozens of times, that is, the act itself, which does not necessarily imply with lots of different lovers, but she likely had at least a handful of different men over the years. On the basis of what we've learned so far then, it's pretty safe to say that sex crime is relatively common in the ranks of the outer party. But are the inner party members just as promiscuous? Well, a point against this is that it may perhaps be a little more difficult for the likes of O'Brien to partake in it, given the higher profile of an inner party member. Inner party members are not a dime a dozen. At the 2 minutes hate, we see a hush come over the comrades at the sight of the black overalls of O'Brien in the book. In Radford's adaptation, there are a few more seated with O'Brien, but going with the book, we can see inner party members as scarce individuals. Indeed, we know this too, as they make up just 2% of the oceanic population, compared to around 13% of the outer party. Inner party members are also not just distinguished by their black overalls, but by their positions too. As the effective ruling elite of Oceania, they broadly occupy the leadership and administrative roles of the society, and exist in the hierarchical level just below Big Brother himself. While not celebrities in the sense we understand in our world, I think most inner party members will be known, at least by their immediate communities and subordinates, and their face therefore easily recognisable. Slipping into the parole quarter via helicopter or car, or even having men or women brought to them then, may be a bit of a giveaway, though not impossible given their resources and clout. We know that belonging to this privileged class does not necessarily make one invulnerable, as they too can be purged, as shown by the case of Withers, an inner party member who was vaporised because he was becoming a little too popular for Big Brother's liking. I think then that it's not as simple as corruption at the top and every inner party member is secretly at it, but neither do I think it's realistic that there's not fraternisation between the branches of the party and perhaps even inner party members and proles. Human beings are just that after all, and inner party members will still have natural urges just like everyone else. A further point, however, against their participation in sex crime is just their greater commitment and fanaticism. As Goldstein's book notes, as one rises in society, so does their genuine commitment to Big Brother, the party, and the principles of INGSOC. O'Brien, Winston notes, is genuine in his fervent beliefs about party reality, noting he is certainly not a hypocrite. Perhaps sex crime is thus very rare or almost non-existent in the upper ranks of oceanic society, simply because these men and women are far more enticed by the possession and pursuit of power. O'Brien, after all, does claim that is the ultimate desire of the inner party member. Almost by definition then, inner party members will be the most fanatical and orthodox of the party, and so much less likely to commit sex crimes. Pushing back against this rather Puritan picture of Oceania's elite though, I believe there is a fairly decisive quote from the book that all but confirms my suspicions that inner party sex crime is a thing. During their first real meeting in the clearing, Winston asks Julia about her intimate past. Quote, "Have you done this before?" "Of course, hundreds of times. Well, scores of times anyway. With party members?" "Yes, always with party members." "With members of the inner party?" "Not with those swine, no. But there's plenty that would, if they got half a chance. They're not so holy as they make out." Julia's last answer is particularly relevant here, as she seems rather unambiguous on whether inner party comrades also commit sex crimes. Julia could, of course, be saying this from a place of skepticism and hatred. She hates the inner party, probably more for their role as the rule makers that restrict her own sex life, and perhaps assumes their hypocrisy when it comes to sex. Something tells me though, reading between the lines, that she's speaking from a place of more definitive knowledge. They're not so holy as they make out. A couple of thoughts do occur aside from general corruption that will inevitably infest any body of people over time. Winston casually notes that Julia lives in a hostel with 30 other girls. I think that though Julia's quite genuine in saying she has never slept with an inner party member, I think she probably knows a girl or two who has, or specifically has let on or told her that they have. This is why she so frankly says, as if with knowledge, that they're not so holy as they make out. Before I continue with the next point, note there will be spoilers for the 2023 novel Julia by Sandra Newman, so skip to the time on screen if you want to remain spoiler-free. The following's not an earth-shattering point or anything, but interesting and shows perhaps that Newman is sympathetic to this idea. Okay, so in Julia we get a far deeper, non-canonical dive into Julia's personal life. For those who are not familiar with it, Julia is a retelling of Orwell's original novel, from Julia's perspective, and in the novel we have various scenes with some of these girls who Julia lives with. Quite early on it's revealed to us that Vicky, a fellow girl at the hostel, is in a forced affair with a prominent inner party member, Deputy Chairman Whitehead, to the extent that she is impregnated by him and has to have the baby aborted. This relationship, of course, is exploitative, but in this novel, at least, Newman does suggest such intimate relationships can and do happen between members of the different branches of the party. The fact that the whole business surrounding the abortion is very shady and has to be done under the table, so to speak, you'll know what I mean if you ever read the novel, also shows that even within a party members, this fraternisation is still highly forbidden, even for someone as prominent as a deputy chairman, for example. In case you're wondering, without spoiling things too much, as Julia is worth a read in my opinion, Vicky does have a happy ending. So while not canonical, Julia, the novel, is very faithful to the original plot, words and movements of Orwell's novel, and does much to build upon the world, and so plausibly in my opinion, shows such relationships do occur. A final and vaguer possibility is based on Julia's job in Cormosec. I'll use the word with a C and M to keep Big Brother YouTube off my back, hopefully. Just as I'm sure you've noticed that I use the SEX term for what we all know what the word is. Julia worked on this blue material made for prol consumption. However, the relevant points here are that, firstly, Julia tells Winston that the place is staffed only by young girls, as the party does not want men or even married women to handle the material. The idea is that, given male sexual instincts are more difficult to control than women's, that the younger girls will not be so easily corrupted. According to Julia, only the heads of department are men, which, if these or some of these are inner party members, might also be a nudge towards some of them becoming corrupted by the material. I get that this final theory is very sketchy. For one thing, I'm not certain the heads of department would be inner party members, as these posts seem a little too junior, but it's a possibility nonetheless. A bit of a stretch though, but fun to think about. Though there may be nothing to the Cormosec information, however, I really do think the theory that Julia knows the inner party has men who do commit sex crimes is because she's heard of them second-hand from girls who have been with them. Perhaps Julia has even had some interest herself of a kind and offset the attention by perhaps joining the Junior Anti-Sex League. This too, of course, is a stretch, and Julia does say she does that kind of thing more for cover than anything else, but it's interesting to think about anyway. What do you all think? Are Julia's words in the Golden Country indicative of definite knowledge of inner party sex crimes? Are inner party members simply too high profile, busy, or holy to commit sex crimes in significant numbers? Write your thoughts in the comments section. Please consider dropping the video a like to help it avoid YouTube oblivion, and hit that subscribe button to be notified about more videos from 1984 lore, and I shall see you in the next one.